persuade you to take a sandwich with you, sir?
I'll get drive-through.
With Val, when you're working with him, you're really not sure what's going to come at you.
Everything around him is an event.
Figured it out yet? What's that? Who's the best pilot?
First time I met him, I thought he was awesome.
I think we might be about to get in trouble.
Val Kilmer, now on Biography.
Here at the Chateau Marmont, where in this very room I did a scene in the film. I hung off the balcony in the doors.
That was this?
Yeah, it was this room. We were pretending it was the room above us so we could have the advantage of the of lighting from the upstairs down, pretending this was the roof. But I was sitting on the edge of it. Oliver liked it whenever I would do the real thing. I didn't do any drugs, though. Not for lack of requesting repeatedly in production meetings. Don't you want to do heroin? No. No, I don't.
Can you go to the balcony?
Yeah, let's go to the balcony. I'll show you. In the scene on the balcony, I was facing the fact that the character could never really get there from here. Meaning, could never really make it. You know, that as a poet or an aspiring poet, he knew that it just maybe was corrupted, the times were corrupted, he could never really get there. Live on the edge, baby! So I was sitting on the edge here, kind of realizing it was never going to happen. Poor Meg, she didn't know what the hell I was talking about.
I want you to come back in here this minute, Jim Morrison. I am not going to kill myself for you.
Cam, where you? Cam, get back inside. Cam,
Here, come over here. This is where Jim Morrison used to hang out. Right there. That's Bungalow 1. And I had my son's 5th birthday party there. That was a bad joke I made, that the last time that many young people were in Bungalow 1 was when Morrison stayed there. It's true. It was right before he went to Paris. He was living in there. They were finishing up the LA Woman record. Still the same building down around the corner where they had their offices. Yeah. What else? Now I'm working down the street. I'm doing a play right down there at the Kodak Theater. It's very strange to do a play here. A musical at that. Last time I did a musical, cardboard was used in the scenery.
Where was that?
Chatsworth High School. Yeah.
So you were a chancellor?
I was chancellor. Well, I was never really a joiner. So I loved the theater and I loved acting, but I sort of hung out with, not really with, I didn't eat lunch with the actors. And I surfed, but I didn't hang out with the surfers. And I played tennis, but I didn't hang out with the tennis players. I can't remember where I hung out. I was in love with Mare Winningham, though. She used to drive me home because I wasn't old enough to drive. I was also, I think, the shortest person ever to play basketball. I didn't start growing forever. Every year, like from 12 years old, my father said, "Don't worry, I didn't start growing till I was 13. And then 13 would come and go, I didn't start growing till I was 14. Dad, you said that last year. I didn't start growing until I was 16 because I'm pretty sure I was young for high school, but I entered high school, I was 4'11". No peach fuzz, no voice cracking, no armpit hair. These are my memories. I walked a lot in the Chatsworth Hills. I wrote a lot of poetry. Went to the Renaissance Fair. Yeah. You know, Sean Penn wrote somewhere where he used to hang out with these guys at Topanga that were vets. And he mentioned, or I knew of, there was one guy who would golf, and they would try to hit the guys from the valley. I was one of those guys. Yeah, because I thought it was funny to have a Val Surf decal. Val Surf was a valley surf shop. But if you had a Val Surf decal on your car, it was like stone key and rip the tires out of this vehicle to anyone who wasn't from there. Should we go somewhere else?
Yeah,
I feel like this is...
We're kind of done here.
Okay. I don't know if it would be better at the pool. We could try and see if we get busted or not.
Yeah.
Coming up, Val Kilmer makes his Hollywood debut.
They waited till like the last week, after months of me playing guitar, and they said one day kind of casually, you know, it's funnier when you can't play. I said, what?
And breaks through playing one of rock's legendary bad boys.
He looked so much like Morrison, and his attitude was ironic like Morrison's.
Top Secret. That's what it was, right? Top Secret. Oh, my God. I think that's the first time I saw him. Was that the first movie he did? Because you all would know. Well, when I saw that, I was like, well, this is the most talented actor I've ever seen in my life. Because he's hilarious and dead-on serious, and singing and dancing and moving and everything is dead-on perfect. Perfect.
Look, I'm not the first guy who fell in love with a girl he met in a restaurant who then turned out to be the daughter of a kidnapped scientist, only to lose her to a childhood lover whom she'd last seen on a deserted island, and who turned out 15 years later to be the leader of the French underground.
I know it. It all sounds like some bad movie.
Charming. He's just very charming in it, and very goofy.
Jerry Zucker and David, his brother, and Jim Abrams, and several other these guys that are in this first couple of movies, starting with Kentucky Fried Movie and Airplane. And they had a theater on Pico. I was addicted. We would go a couple of times a month, is my memory, for a while. But they were just hysterical, and most of those jokes got put into Airplane and all. So I just knew their thing, their style, backwards and forwards. So when I met them, I kind of did a whole homage to their stuff, which they liked. They were so brutal, though. Like, I learned to play the guitar. My fingers bled to make these guys happy and do all this. They waited till like the last week, after months of me playing guitar, and they said one day kind of casually, you know, it's funnier when you can't play. I said, what? They said, you know how like Elvis was just like, it's funnier. It's nice you knew them, but you learned the songs, that's nice, but we don't really want you to play. And they just did it just to see that look on my face, pain and disappointment.
And then Real Genius.
I can't go through an airport without somebody mentioning Real Genius. It made a lot of nerds happy.
He is just hilarious, and in my favorite way hilarious. You know, it's not... Goofy's fine, but he's not goofy. He's, you know, just dead-on serious, hilarious. And, oh, God, no, I've been a huge fan since then.
We lived all the way at the north end of the valley, at the end of the city limits, literally the end of the city in the valley. And that's where my father started. We started at the beach, and then he moved out there. He found a lovely old faux Tudor house across the way. I guess you can't say street because there was a valley in between us and Roy Rogers. And then he eventually bought his place.
And Val lived in what was Roy Rogers' old ranch. That's where Val grew up. So there was a Dale Avenue and a Trigger Street.
They lived across the street. She answered the door, her hair was in curlers, and I joked. I said, can Roy come out and play? She had a big southern accent that I hadn't seen on TV or heard. She said, I think he's busy right now, darling. I said, okay, and ran away.
The reason that my company is called Trigger Street Productions is because Val lived on Trigger Street. When we were both maybe, I don't know, 15 or maybe a little younger, we dreamed about building a theater on Trigger Street.
Yeah, we had an idea of doing outdoor theater sort of in the sense of play that they had going at the Renaissance Fair in the 70s.
And it was going to, and I still have the napkins that we drew, the amphitheater. It was going to be the Trigger Street Theater, and we were going to do new plays, and we were going to do Shakespeare. And when it came time for me to name my company, I just remembered that time as being a time where anything seemed possible on Trigger Street.
I just started asking around what the best school was. I don't know who I asked in Chatsworth, but someone knew. I think I was 16 when I auditioned, so I couldn't find any monologue to do, so I wrote one because I still sounded like a surfer. And well, I'll tell you the scam I built into it, because I just kept thinking, how do you do an audition? What is it? Because no matter what you do, you can't stop yourself from thinking, please like me and give me the part, or in this case, let me in. I don't know how I came up with this, but I wish I was still this clever. I turned it into the audition of the people that were watching. And I realized if I pretended to break character, that if I got someone to believe me, that then they would have to remember it. So at one point I looked up and I said, I'm sorry, can I start over? Hoping someone would say, yes, please. And it was Marion Seldes, who was very theatrical. She said, oh yes, darling, do it, oh yes, please. And she started like chewing on her lip and everything. And I said no, and that's the point, because we could never start over. And then I went back to quoting what this woman was saying. And so that was the first thing they asked me when we were done with the audition, is if that was part of the monologue. And so I was happy that my little scheme worked.
Val had gone to Juilliard right after high school. It took me 2 years to get the message, but he kept writing me letters saying, you've got to come to school if you're serious. If you want to study, if you want to be a good theater actor, this is what you have to do. And it was really Val that insisted and helped me make the decision to go to Juilliard.
I did that? It's my fault. The main thing with Juilliard was learning how to learn, that there are rules and laws and principles to the creative process and to life.
Just to preface it with the context, I remember Val in 1984, I believe it was, auditioning for Platoon as Sergeant Elias, and he came in and he did one of the strangest auditions I've ever seen in my life. And he came in basically without a word, and he laid down on the table, and he was already a fairly known actor, and he did this weird kind of Indian ghost shaman act of Elias, and it was very bizarre to say the least. It just didn't fit the script, but it was so outspoken, I was stunned, and that was my first impression of him. And then I called him for the Doors, and he looked so much like Morrison, and his attitude was ironic like Morrison's.
They really were, in some ways, the first punk band. They had a sense through Morrison of what real theater is.
It's a scary role. It's a huge role. Every shot is on you. You carry every scene in some way. You have to be Jim Morrison night and day. So at one point, Val was wearing leather pants, and he was sleeping Jim Morrison, being Jim Morrison. And then truly a flaky side came out of him, a beautiful flaky side, which I still see today, which is great.
Oliver's a very thorough director. He's a dynamic character, and he's demanding, and I don't know if if his style is the right way, but it certainly has produced some of the best performances of every actor that's worked for him. Certainly is true in my career.
Up next, Kilmer reteams with Stone for an epic with star power.
We just started in right away making jokes and goofing like a sort of perfectly dysfunctional family that Oliver Stone was so proud to have assembled. He called us the Addams family of ancient literature. Would you have a key?
Yes, it's right there.
Yeah, I've got a key.
Because that'll get us into the pool.
Oh, okay.
No one will be there.
I'll be the key cat.
Actually, last time I was in there was with Robert. Well, I did a photo shoot and Robert Downey Jr. came by because we just acted together. It's the last time I was in that room. Yeah.
Now, I heard that you gained a bunch of weight to play Philip of Macedonia.
Yeah.
But then in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, your character was very GQ, and you had to like suddenly drop a bunch of weight.
Yeah, it was hell. It's still hell. It's hard being heavy. It really hurts. My back hurt all the time. It hurts to have girls not look at you, too. And we just... Come on.
You guys might have to take the next one down. What floor are you up to?
P. You have the key?
Yeah.
Robert. It's Val. I'm in the same room that you came by and visited when I was taking pictures. I just thought I'd mention that.
Well, I'm sure this isn't news to you that he's, chronically eccentric.
I'm just on my feet again after my back went out because of Moses. I blame Moses for everything now.
It's pretty fun just following him around.
Yeah, I did a lot of filming here with the high-definition camera I was experimenting with. Well, this was still when it was 33 frames. Maybe we can find a dry pad and talk here. My son sort of learned to swim in that pool. It's my home away from home. And that's where Jim Morrison did a lot of bad things. Should we sit here? I never really had to pay dues like most actors, and I had a strange combination of desire that was like paying dues. I was never satisfied with, I never pursued monetary success or financial success or sort of fame.
Well, it used to be called having a life, you know?
You can see how he could get obsessed with his characters, and he can get mad, as we all can. But he's really, he did all of his work becoming an actor, and he's got a deep-rooted, essence of like the artist, and he's not just a guy who wants to be an actor. He understands the work of it, and he does it.
Working with Oliver Stone again, and Colin Farrell, who I love, and 30 other just as crazy Irishmen as he, and Angelina Jolie in this giant dream of Oliver Stone's of Alexander. We just finished that. 3 continents and 6 months, and it was just fantastic.
And I promise you'll conquer death!
The gods have a way of punishing such pride.
No man or woman can be too powerful or too beautiful without disaster befalling.
In my heart, I knew he'd be a great Philip right away because he'd played Alexander for me, and as Jim Morrison, that was my version of Alexander as a younger man, in a sense.
I think Oliver was having a lot more fun when we did The Doors. He was staying up late and getting up early on the doors, and this time he was staying up late and getting up early but complaining about it.
It was great to see Colin look at Val the first time, just the way he looked at him like a curious dog looking at another dog, you know. But fascinated because he recognized, and most actors recognize in Val there's something different than meets the eye.
All my life I've waited for Greeks to grovel with respect for Macedonia. Today is that day.
He'd called, and we were about to play husband and wife, and he was lovely. He was very professional. He called as if, you know, he was Philip and I was Olympias, and he was saying hi and welcoming me to Morocco.
The first day, I mean, the first scene in the film that they have together, he comes in drunken and rapes her.
And it was very violent, and he was going to choke me and attack me. And I remember in the middle of one thing where he was choking me, and he was so in character and so angry, but my top had fallen, and somehow in the middle of everything he was doing, he picked it up and covered me on camera. And that just says something. He was going to protect my modesty in the middle of this really violent rape scene, very much in character, but somehow he did that.
So we're beginning in a, you know, strangely intimate circumstances. And so we just started in right away making jokes and goofing like the sort of perfectly dysfunctional family that Oliver Stone was so proud to have assembled. He called us the Addams family of ancient literature. Me, Colin, and Angie. We just had a ball.
He sent me a snake as a welcome gift that turned out to be poisonous.
How do you know it's poison?
But I still was very happy, so thank you, Val.
I would not do that. Some driver told her that in Morocco. What do they know? I think we might be about to get in trouble.
Oh, okay, maybe we should walk back up to our room.
Hi.
How are you? One of the other guests would like to use the pool. Is that okay?
It's getting dark anyway, isn't it? Oh, someone wants to swim? Yeah, we ought to. Oh. It's okay, all our sweats are wet.
Coming up, Val chooses some fitting roles.
He felt perfect for the character he wanted to play. He had that ice quality to him.
I regret ever complaining about the bat suit because people still ask me about it. It is living hell, which my compatriots would or have corroborated. It just hurts.
Who's the next superstar to slip into superhero spandex? Jerry O'Connell, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Taye Diggs, or The Rock? Log on to Newsweek.com to cast your vote in the Newsweek Who's Next poll. The results will be revealed at the end of this program.
He was doing a play called Slab Boys in New York. The casting director at the time said, "You got to meet this young actor. He's quite the rage. He's very handsome, and his performances were excellent. And he was on the come at the time. So we brought him in. We interviewed him. He felt perfect for the character he wanted to play. He had that ice quality to him."
Figured it out yet? What's that? Who's the best pilot?
Well, we went through the flight school. We went through the jams through flight school as much as we could handle.
The actors had to go through a lot to become those fighter pilots, because we actually filmed them in the cockpit and got some great footage of them flying in the back seat of an F-14, which was quite a thrill for everybody.
We went out on the aircraft carriers. They were running maneuvers. In fact, one of the aircraft carriers that we used in the movie left mysteriously. We had to get another one or get permission to use another one because they went off on this secret mission when they were flying air cover for the F-111s when we bombed Libya.
I don't like you because you're unsafe. That's right.
When you get Val on a movie, you know he's going to put 110% effort into creating something that's unique and special, that audiences can really enjoy. And, when you put somebody in front of an audience on a 100-foot screen, it doesn't lie. The camera doesn't lie. It shows you right into your soul.
Yeah, Willow was a lot of fun. I met my wife there because I met her and just fell in love. I spent every day for 6 months trying to get her to date me, and she wouldn't do it. I'd buy tickets to whatever play I'd overhear her saying she liked, and then I'd mention, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday that I had tickets, and then Friday she'd say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm busy." She was awful. But I'd seen her in a play called The Genius. I was too shy to meet her, so I'd watch her leave the theater and go over to the pub and follow her like a stalker. I was a junior stalker. I told her the story, too, and she didn't believe me, but I told her what she used to wear, so then she believed.
He's also a hell of a good father, and he really loves his children and he cares about them.
First and foremost in his life are his kids, are Mercedes and Jack.
You know, it's great. I love being a dad.
The essence of him is the way he is with his kids. He's a real sweetheart. When I saw him as a father.
I really honestly don't know how dedicated a parent I would be if they weren't so cool. They're just more interesting than most people. I have no more friends anymore. They call me and say, "Hi, is Mercedes there?" And they take her out instead, and people come over and play with my son instead of me. I lived the hardest life. I remember the first time my daughter was upset that I was famous. She came in very upset one day. She was quite small, but my son was just, 2 or 2.5. Said, "Jack doesn't believe you're Batman. He thinks he's Batman." And I keep telling him he's really upsetting me. I said, I don't know what to say. She said, "Well, prove it." I said, "Well, if he thinks he's Batman, what can I do?" And she said, "Well, show him the movie." So I went out and rented the movie. And so my son, I don't know how, he was like 2.5 years old, but he was sitting there watching the movie like this. Like, okay, there you are pretending to be Batman, but I'm Batman. Used to have the little PJs with the cape on it and all. I thought it was because of me, but he had no interest in me being Batman. I regret ever complaining about the bat suit because people still ask me about it. It is living hell, which my compatriots would or have corroborated. It just hurts. It's like being old because you can't hear, you can't see, no one talks to you, you can't stand up on your own, you fall over for no reason. I mean, it's all things. I know what it's like to be 88 because I've been in the bat suit.
I mean, I would love to see Val lead a movie because he's certainly capable of it, and if you surround him with good, solid actors and a good story, he can do it, for sure. Whether that's his intention and makes him happy, I don't know that it would. The Saint didn't make him happy. Batman didn't make him happy. Big money was at stake. He was in pain. He was in misery. So when he's doing what he loves, which is acting, which is playing, he loves to play, Val. He's a child, and as many of us are at heart.
You'd think that someone who's had as long and illustrious a career as him would have to be a pretty manipulative guy. And I think he's really childlike in his aspirations and his beliefs. And I think that's something really intangible about him, and something that's probably protected him in a way that's good,
He likes to play still. He wants to play on Earth. And that's what he loves, when he can get behind a role and chew on it.
Oliver Stone is concerned about everyone and everywhere, or at least interested. I don't know if he's concerned about everyone, but he'll know if something's gone on with the driver. He'll know somebody's personal drama with the catering. He always got his ears open. He's almost a little clairvoyant. He's always a little scary. Because he'll mention something that I haven't mentioned to him. He just does it on purpose. I don't know. He's got good spies. They're everywhere. Who sent you? Have you seen ID from him? Maybe he's not with us. He does seem to have magical powers.
Up next, Kilmer takes on a role of mammoth proportions.
It was very tiring pretending to be John Holmes, but it was very gratifying.
What is your favorite Val Kilmer film? Visit biography.com and take our quick poll.
My mother...
I tried to escape the chateau, but there's a Bermuda Triangle lodged underneath this hotel. I think it might be Hotel California. You can check in, but you can't check out. Actually, I'm one of the few living actors they asked to leave. Usually you have to die to leave here. They didn't ask me to leave. It just took longer and longer to get room service. Thank you. I think that several impromptu parties, well, there's limited parking space. I think they thought a lot more was happening in that room than really was. Maybe they read the Wonderland script and got nervous.
We were shooting the first scene that I was in, I think, yeah, in this hotel suite where Sharon is visiting John after he's been arrested, and he's at the, Bonaventure Hotel with the police, and he grabs Sharon, pulls her into the bathroom, and we did a scene.
Okay. And he is trying to convince her to enter the witness protection program, and that he and his 19-year-old girlfriend are going to go off with the wife who's going to take care of them like she has been doing.
They're going to put me in the witness protection program if I tell them everything I told you, except I told them I'm not saying anything about anything unless all three of us can go.
All three of us?
And they agreed.
Who's all three of us?
You, me, and Don. We can go tomorrow.
Camera was just on me, and he kept improvising things that were dead on perfect. Perfect.
No, there are tricks you can do as an actor to get a reaction from your fellow actor. She was so tough in it. It was just wonderful working with her.
The writer-director, James Cox, was there. It's like, so good. And every single time we did it, Val said something else and something different. But they were all perfect and could have been used.
He's always doing something interesting. I mean, both in his choices and in what he does on camera. He's always interesting, and it's always truthful.
He's got elegance when he wants. He's got swabbishness when he wants. And it's up to the director as well as the writer to bring him up, bring him out, bring those other sides of him out.
Whatever role he takes on, he becomes the character, and you love watching him do it.
It's pretty exceptional working with Val because he's so committed to his creative process and to whatever character he's playing. I think he's probably the closest to a method actor that I've ever worked with.
They're really tricks, but some of them are in the movie where you just do something to get a reaction.
No, Sharon, it's okay. They've got people that can come and pack you.
No, John, no, I am not going into the witness protection program with you. That's that.
John Holmes was, ultimately a very sick man who hurt a lot of people. Lisa, who played his wife, that woman never stopped loving who the guy really was. Hi, Sharon. Thanks. She had to stop being around him like you have to do with a drug addict. But she never stopped caring about him. She still went to go visit him in the hospital here in Los Angeles. And so we would just riff off of that kind of dynamic of relationship.
We started doing this thing. I don't want to call it a bit, but it kind of was. It was funny and dead on serious all at the same time, and it was so perfect because for us it was just their relationship in a nutshell.
Sharon, just be cool, okay? Please.
And it was, he'd walk into the kitchen and say,
gosh, I really feel like an apple pie. And she'd say, John, it's 3 in the morning. I'm not going to do it. Okay, but no crust.
I can make a pie, but I only apple pie, because I only have apples. I don't have other fruits, so I can just make apple pie. And it won't be with the pastry crust. It's going to be with, just bleached flour. Like, she's going to... I don't know why, but to us, that was sort of their relationship in a nutshell, which was, I need everything in the world from you, and it was all right, but, just a little, not all of everything.
It was very tiring pretending to be John Holmes, but it was very gratifying. I guess one of the worst things about the schedule was my son was playing soccer, and inevitably I'd have some Friday night shoot. I get home covered in blood and fake cocaine on my neck, and I try to wipe it off, and I'd sleep an hour and get up and go watch him play soccer. One day I was sitting there My ear felt like that, and it was all full of blood, and I just felt so sorry for him.
Could you fill it with water, please?
It's not really going good out here.
Okay.
Please.
I completely appreciate someone who is totally committed to the project. And he wasn't totally committed to Val Kilmer's portrayal of John Holmes. He was committed to this story, to the point of brought on his own, this photographer who's a great artist, Ali, who was documenting in still photography the making of this movie.
I was doing a lot of art with a friend of mine. The idea was to make a book of this very short shoot, very incredible cast.
What they call them, these books he makes of what's happening in his life experience with the cutouts. I mean, basically it looks like 200 pages of ransom note.
We got more caught up in the art project and printing the photos of each day's shoot and making collages out of them, and we never quite got around to the book.
And put together this great show, these great photos and collages of photos, and then, you know, Val splattered them with blood or red paint and then wrote parts of the script onto it. Really amazing.
He's always tweaking on something that's evocative, and I would have thought he was a lot more shallow than that.
He's one of these artists who is constantly searching, who can't shut his creative side off.
You know, there's no explaining how he does what he does. There's no, he just does it. He's a real artist.
See, it's not about finding out what you're doing. It's about doing it and finding out variations. Burgers are here. Do you need someone to sign that?
Up next.
I'd heard that he could be somewhat difficult.
He offended people.
The first time I met him, I thought he was...
Well, my father grew up on Indian land in the mountains of New Mexico, so he gave me an appetite for that, a sense of wilderness that when you read the classics, and I just, at a very early age, loved poetry. That's sort of in the family tree. Joyce Kilmer writing one of the most famous poems about trees. Often the wilderness of nature gets likened to what is maybe a sense of freedom and purity that I don't find as many examples of in human creations. I love New York City, I love Paris, and they're nice buildings, but I just feel most myself in nature. Africa to me is a freedom, and it's also the birthplace of humanity, and there's something that's so rich and inspiring about the simple things there. There's a kind of respect for the land that here it is the birthplace of humanity, and still the place on earth with the most wildlife. It's quickly being destroyed.
My name is Val Kilmer. Southern Africa lives in my heart. I've made many journeys here and developed a deep respect for the people, the wildlife, and the landscape.
If you're interested in wildlife, go see it before it's gone. It won't be there by the time my kids graduate college.
You know, I'd heard, you know, Hollywood always has its stories, and I'd heard that he could be somewhat difficult.
The first time I met him, I thought he was...
And that was Val's problem. He was a little bit elitist at the early stages of his life, so he offended people by being hard to understand. Misunderstood, if you want.
Did you enjoy the show? No, not at all. You hated the whole thing?
So I was a little nervous, but I didn't find him that way at all.
I don't believe any stories I've heard about actors.
I found him very, very undemanding. Some actors are demanding. That's true.
People will assign someone with the label difficult if they just didn't agree with them, or they didn't think they were treated with enough respect from that actor, or everyone has different reasons for calling someone difficult.
He was always very
acerbic would be on the doors at the end. It ended badly, unfortunately, although I loved working with him. I really loved working with him. I think words were said that were unnecessary, and it was harsh. And I was hurt, and I let my feelings be hurt for several years. He came up to my office, said, I want to work with you again, and I'm sorry that I behaved that way before because I was that person, and I'm sorry. And frankly, I thought that was very manly of him and very, you know, straightforward. And I always found Val straightforward, and he grew through it.
I think he's forever struggling to try to avert, like, here it goes again, here's that thing, you're the difficult guy. No, he's not. He was like in the bathroom and they call act, you know, it's like that self-fulfilling prophecy. So I think he was like, oh my God, I'm about to be difficult guy again, but I'm also a difficult hungry guy, so I better eat something. And then he, like, you know, ran up, and of course he almost choked to death trying to do the right thing. It says something about trying to do the right thing, doesn't it? It'll kill you. Mm-hmm.
He's not what you see on the surface at all. That Val is a puzzle inside a mystery wrapped in an enigma, if you know. Val's interesting.
Whether it is his children or the films he does or his photography or the writing or his artwork, he's very hard on himself, and he's very hardworking.
I think Val's, you know, has the career that he set out to do. He wanted to be considered a consummate actor, and that's what he is. I mean, he is a very strong force in his profession.
I think he is one of the great actors. I've seen him do work on stage that other people haven't seen him do.
What Val has as an actor is something that the really, really great actors have, is they make everything sound like an improvisation.
Often he'll burst out with the most insane non sequitur, and you don't understand what he's saying, but in fact it's quite on the money, and you have to listen to what he says. My mistake, if any, indoors was not listening to him all the time. Not that he was always right, and sometimes it's convoluted, but you have to listen to him because he's an intelligent man. He sees deeply with great, I think, psychological and also spiritual insight. He sees into things, situations. He sees their purpose. He's an advanced human being, in my opinion.
I've just always been able to get something out of acting, and very often, sometimes not, it's come along where the job has just really helped me at that time in my life. It's always the most interesting performances when the private life of an actor comes together with the job, and I've been very lucky to play some really good jobs with some really good people. And I'm just really having the ball.
He's a deep guy, and I think he's, you know, I think he's a very sensitive and very spiritual person. I think that's a struggle. I think it's a struggle, you know, particularly when you're in one of the most vapid, innocuous, and evil industries on earth.
He's very driven. By what? I don't know, but he's driven.
I sure don't feel driven. I feel sort of the opposite. I'm not lazy. I'm just, I can't say without laughing, but I really am trying to just be a better person. Maybe you can get a take where I'm not laughing.